I live in a condominium in Sunnyvale, and after a while, what happens is in our homeowners association meetings, we all get kind of close. We kind of build these relationships, and we're all there together to try to help our three little buildings. And one of the recent issues we had was with our dumpster. So we have two dumpsters, and they're like in a little squared off area, a small little protected area. And we've had problems, all kinds of problems with it. We finally put a lock on the door, and we still had problems, so we put a video camera. So our condo unit is right outside on the edge of it. So if you could look out our window, look straight down, you'd see the dumpsters. And so what we did is we strung a video camera down from our window, and we're trying to find who is it that doesn't throw their trash out right. It's a lot of fun, to tell you the truth. And, we can all look at our cell phones, Well, anyways, we found that some people, what they would do is that they would nicely wrap up their trash in the trash bags really well, and then they wouldn't put it in the dumpster. They would leave it in front of the dumpster. And it's like mysterious. Why don't you throw it in the dumpster? Why? Because basically you're asking other people to throw your trash in the dumpster, because if you don't, then the trash company gives us a huge fine, and those things add up every time they come. So, it's just like, well, how do we do this? We finally got one of the culprits, thanks to my video camera, to tell us what the issue was. And what it was this person was afraid of the germs on the lid of the dumpster. So she was worried. She thought, I didn't mean to say the gender. He was worried that he was going to pick that lid up and get contaminated, And personally, I'm thinking, that's why they make, surgical gloves and stuff like that. You can buy those at the grocery store. But, nobody's listening to me. So that's just the way. So I'm just happy to get that dumpster and, trash bag in there. Because, to be honest, I have one of the world's greatest libraries, inventories of antibody viruses in me. And I don't know what I could do that would ever make me sick. I have eaten dirt pretty much my entire childhood, and maybe even in my teen years. May or may not have, I'm not admitting to it. And I have eaten horrible things, like vegetables that haven't been washed and fruits that haven't been washed just because they look really good and I don't really care. And I would eat those, and I know that my body has developed this amazing set of antibodies that it would be really hard for anything to get me sick. I had a funny incident. I went to Mavis here. She works at an optometrist, and I went there, and they did a nice job trying to figure out my eyes, and they found retinal scarring. And the first time they looked at it, and they, wow, that's really unusual, but we can tell that it's old and it hasn't done any more. And so they sent it off to a lab, try to figure out what it was. And they asked me to come back in a couple of days, and I came back, and they had a couple questions for me. He says, have you ever lived in South America? Yeah, I live in South America. Were you ever around farm animals? Oh, yeah. I was around a lot of farm animals. She goes, well, it's a very typical bacteria down there, and sometimes when some of those waste particles get into your eye or into your mouth, what happens is that that bacteria travels to your eye, and it causes a lot of child blindness. But evidently, your body was able to fight that off at a young age, so those scars healed, and you're pretty much okay, but we did find that. I was about 9 years old when that happened. I was fascinated that they had, pinpointed the location of it. And so I asked her, I says, how old do you think I was when that happened? And I knew how old I was. And she says, you were 9 years old. Oh my gosh, you guys know so much about me. And pretty exciting. And, and there it was. I said, yeah, just more antibodies building up inside of me. Whenever you live in a city, there's a lot of filth. Because there's just people moving, right? Not everybody's very sanitary. But you just have to live with it. It's just the way it is. In Jesus' time, they did their very best to keep everybody clean the best they could. They didn't have paved roads. They didn't have paved. So what they would do is they would wash. They had all kinds of rituals. They had all kinds of customs. And a large economy built around keeping people clean. And one of the practices they had was when you go into somebody's house, you take off your shoes, certainly, but there would be a servant there or somebody at the bottom of the pecking order who would come over to your feet, and they would wash all the dirt and everything off your feet. And I imagine it was pretty nice. And so then they would move on. And there's a part of that that's very similar to our Christian lives today. Not only do we have to make an extra effort to keep ourselves physically clean, but there's also that part that's on a spiritual level, that there's a soiling of sin in our hearts. There's a sin that gets to us during our days. There's something that we need to have that washed off and be clean from that. And so in a metaphorical way, the idea of washing the feet is also very much speaking to our condition today as servants of others. When we see sin affecting somebody's life, how much more our own. But we as followers of Jesus are to play a part in washing people's feet, meaning we are to play a part in helping to clean their lives up, introducing them to Jesus, finding forgiveness for their sins, and helping people through the difficulties of life and the sin that attaches and gets stuck to us so easily in our lives. We are to play a role, a part in doing what God gives us as an example to do. And so the passage that we're going to read today is about Jesus washing the feet of his disciples, which is a little bit more humorous considering a bigger setting of the story. It wasn't too long before that Jesus washed the feet of his disciples that his disciples were arguing amongst themselves of who was the greatest among them. And they were, just like at work, who deserves the next promotion? Who deserves to make more money? Who deserves to, whatever it is? But they were all saying, no, me, no, me, no, me. And they're having this argument. And here they make their way into it's called the Last Supper because it was literally Jesus' Last Supper. They come into this room, and this is the last chance Jesus has to talk to them, that they have to be together before everything changes. Absolutely everything changes. And so they gather together, and of course, we're talking about God, so we know exactly how it went. You just imagine, people don't change. This is how it was. They all find themselves in the supper room. Everybody kind of stretches their feet out, waiting for the lowest on rank, the most humble there, the most unworthy of them to come wash their feet. And so they start looking around at each other saying, well, it's not me. And Bart, hey, my feet aren't washed. It's not me. I'm not that low. There's got to be somebody else here worthy to wash your feet. It's not going to be me. And Jesus stands up. And he's the one that goes over and gets the basin. And I would think that in that moment, those followers of Jesus would be a little bit embarrassed, to say the least, because they were all looking, maybe even on the humor side, of who's the bottom of the barrel here? Who's the very worst of us? They're the ones supposed to be washing their feet. And all of a sudden, Jesus steps in, takes the role of the one underneath everybody. And so I'm thinking, oh boy, I think anybody should have washed the feet at that moment. But here is Jesus presenting himself literally as the lowest of the low on the very last night of his time on earth with these people. If anybody should have been being served that night, it had to have been Jesus, because he knew exactly what was going to be happening to him. He's going to be soon arrested because of the traitor, Judas, who's right in that supper with them. And he knows exactly what happens when you get arrested by Romans. You're going to be beaten to a pulp. You're barely going to live. And Jesus knew that this would be the time he would die. And I would think that the last thing in Jesus' mind is washing other people's feet. He's got a lot to worry. Okay, nobody wash feet. We got to get through tonight. We got to take care of some business here. That's how I would have imagined it, but not Jesus. Jesus looks all the way through that, and he gets down on his hands and knees and kneels before each one of his disciples, and he washes their feet. And that's where we're going to pick up here in John chapter 13. And this is the picture of it. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world, and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. And I underlined that in my Bible. He now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." And so here is Jesus in this moment. And this is the moment when he is supposed to be saying lasting, timeless things to his disciples. Instead, he gets down on his hands and he gets down on his knees. And he says, "This is my teaching. This is my example. What I am doing, the attitude I have right now, in the midst of all these stories, this is what I expect. This is what I want you to do." And this is where Jesus just comes in this powerful moment, there in this moment where everybody's sitting and saying, this isn't the way it's supposed to be done. But maybe they'd gotten used to, this isn't the way this is supposed to be done, because that seems to always be the way Jesus did it. Against all expectations, against all rationality, against all customs, Jesus does his own thing. Says, "This is how I do it, and I'm teaching you this is how we are to do it. And as when you are here without me, this is how I expect you to move on. This is what I'm looking for you to do, to wash their feet." I think for us as followers of Jesus, many times we look for, just give me some really deep words. Give me something I can really grab a hold of in my life. So we're kind of looking for head knowledge, maybe, something like that, or maybe some crazy power, like Star Wars or something like that. I don't know. But we look for something out there. But what does Jesus give us? Kneeling before everybody and washing their feet. That's what he gives us. It's just, for me, it's still hard to comprehend and understand. My role, my relationship with Jesus requires, there's an expectation, there's a blessing involved. Jesus said this is the right way to go, to get down on your knees, be under other people, and to say, serve them, help them, care for them. And I look at that and I said, Jesus, shouldn't you be talking about how you're going to build an organization that's going to transcend cultures and languages and expansion of civilizations and change the face of the world? Shouldn't you be talking about starting that? And he's like, no, I really shouldn't. God's got that. God's taking care of that. This is what I'm showing you, the role of the followers of Jesus. This is what we do. We wash the feet of others. And as unworthy as they might seem to you, you are even to stoop lower than they are, to kneel even lower than they are, and to serve them. Man, a lot of us don't like that. It just gets into us. But that's where Jesus is. That's where he's going with this whole thing. And a lot of people say, are we supposed to be washing feet? The church has been dealing with that now for 2,000 years. And we decided a long time, when I say a long time, I'm thinking about the year 150. It was decided that no, this was a metaphor. Washing feet is easy. I wish I could demonstrate my humility to the world by actually washing people's feet. But there's some that still do that. But nobody looks at them and says, oh, how humble of you. Because sometimes when they do that, they're on a stage with lights, and there's beautiful music behind them. They're dressed so well. There's all kinds of a ritual going on. And yes, that reminds me of what Jesus says. But in your heart of hearts, you're not thinking, oh, you're so humble. No, you're not thinking that at all, right? You're doing this because, we all think you should, or you're telling us it's a good thing. That's not what Jesus is doing. It's not literally the act of washing feet. but it is certainly the attitude of washing feet. It is certainly to have that heart that I'm open to do that. I'm available to do that. I don't have any pride issues. I don't have any expectations. I'm not depending on what the opinion of other people are. No, I'm here to serve. I'm here to give. I'm here to consider myself lower than anybody else around here. And so what we find here with Jesus is this attitude that as he kneels before you and he kneels before me, you know what that does to my heart? That just endears me to Jesus. It makes me want to get closer to him. It makes me want to embrace Jesus. It makes me to want to relate to Jesus and to admit that he understands me and that I see how much he loves me and how important I am in his eyes, that he would get down on his hands and knees before me to do something so menial. And I think, wow, what a wonderful Savior I have. What a wonderful Savior. And let me do the opposite of that. If Jesus were on a ladder and he was at the very top of it, and so he's high up and he's over everybody, he's looking at all of the people under him, you know what that would make me do? That would make me feel distant from him. That would make me say, oh, you're so good, you're so great, and I'm not. I'm so far below you. And so there's this great distance. But maybe if I work really hard, maybe I can step up on one or two of the rungs of the ladder. And if I can keep doing really well, maybe I can get up a little closer to you and be almost as good as you are. That's what it makes. That's the mentality that comes when I think of Jesus being out so much greater, so much more wonderful. But the last picture that Jesus gives us and gave his disciples was nope. His disciples laying there and Jesus on his knees below them, serving them, bringing them, says, here I am. This is what it is. This is how it goes. And I tell you, this is a practical, if it's not an everyday occurrence, it's an every moment occurrence. And it's just continually challenges our thinking. And I'm constantly challenged by this thinking of what I hope will happen, of what I expect to happen, what I want to happen, as opposed to God saying, hey, I've got this. This is how I've asked you to be. Why don't you let me do my job and you do what I've asked you to do? How about we just settle it right there? That's a continual struggle for me, to be able to rest and say, okay, God, I get it. I know what you're asking me. Help me do what you've asked me to do and leave these other great ambitions and hopes and expectations to you. That's the way it is. Last Thursday, I had a neat incident happen, an opportunity. One of Ami's friends from work passed away very unexpectedly, and it caused an enormous amount of trauma. They're in the OR. She works at Stanford. And so because this girl was a follower of Jesus, they asked, does anybody know somebody who could lead the memorial service so it's about Jesus and not a generic kind of a thing that the chaplains kind of do? So Ami said, yes, I know somebody who could do that. And so I went, and they go into the OR, and I didn't notice, I'd never been past that first door of the OR, but there's a lot of corridors. It's a big space back in there, tons of rooms and all kinds of this, that, people rushing everywhere. It's a strange place. So I make my way, I follow Ami all the way back in there, and she moves me into this room, the LRC, the Learning Resource Center. And it's not a big room, it's kind of a small room. And she sits me down, and she begins to share with them that here's Greg. You can tell him whatever you want him to do, and he'll do it. And he's my husband, so let me know. And so there I was. And so I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? And there I'm sitting. And I was really nervous about this because another bit of instruction she had given me was, I work with these people. Don't make it worse for me. But then she says, they don't know a single thing about Jesus, so you need to tell them. I go, oh boy, don't make them mad. Tell them about Jesus, Okay, where's that little line? And I was nervous about that. And I felt the Lord pressing on my heart to say, Greg, talk about peace. talk about me. Tell them how I am there during the moments when you pass away and how I give you a peace at that moment. And that's the same peace I give you when the storms hit in life, and you can still call out to me and I'll still be there for you. I said, okay, that's good. I can do that. And I was very grateful. And wouldn't you know that a lot of the words of the ladies that were given testimonies, and some guys are also talking about the girl, a lot of what they said was in her last days. Even though she was very young, she was the only daughter of these parents, and the parents were absolutely devastated, of course. She said there was this amazing peace about her. And their parents shared in that peace about what was happening to her and how she was going to be passing away and be going to heaven soon. And so it was so easy for me to stand up and just tell exactly what I felt the Lord give me to share. And so everything went very well. I even had a lady come up to me afterwards. She says, I really liked what you said. And my husband and I, we talk about that, but we don't know much. I'm going to tell him everything you said. And so I said, come to church. And, so that happened. And then next thing I know, it was such a loving atmosphere there. And it's usually a very political, very difficult, very crisis atmosphere. And people were talking to each other. And some people say, I never get to talk to people here. It's just so nice. And what I noticed, everybody was clumped in small groups talking to each other. And I looked over and I saw all of Ami's bosses, who I hear a lot about. And they're all back there talking to each other. And I thought, well, how do I get out of here? And then I said, I can't get out of here because Ami's not here to take me out. I'll never get out of here. So I would sit and I looked around and I said, and I remembered the sermon I'm preaching today. And I said, well, Lord, what could I do to serve all these people? Well, it's like, funny you should ask. Immediately my attention went to the water things they had there. And their caterers had brought in really nice fruit, laden water. And it was delicious. I'd had some before. And so I said, why don't I go serve everybody water? And so I did. I ran over to the water thing. And what I found was people were having such a good time talking to each other. Nobody wanted to break away and lose that communication, lose that fellowship moment. But they were also very thirsty. And so when I brought over glasses of water, man, they took those so fast. Thank you. And they continued to stay there. And then I went over to the Ami's bosses, a whole group of them, and offered them water. And they were so nice. They'll talk to me a little bit. And I felt like saying, you guys are so much nicer than I've heard. I'm shocked, But I didn't. I kept my mouth shut. I don't get in trouble, right? And but I remember that, and I thought, look at that. It's all I had to do. Now that's a fun little story like that, where it's not something I would normally do, but I was challenged to find a place, And I did wonder, who's supposed to be doing this, But I did find a place that this is what Jesus would do. This is what Jesus would do. And I was so comfortable there. I was so thrilled to be there in that moment. And I find myself continually challenged in that same way. People say things, in relationships, crazy stuff happens. And it's that same thing, like, oh, stop. Stop. What's my role? My role is to serve. And I remember that I love going to my small group on Wednesdays. It's so important to me. And I love being there. And that's basically what we do in a small group. We serve each other. We don't do away with somebody because there's sin in their lives. No, that brings us in, Here, let's help each other. Let's care for each other. Let's pray for each other. Let's share with each other. Let's find a way out of this together. I absolutely love that. It's so important in my life. And in the small group that Jesus had, who did he have there? Judas. Jesus already knew that Judas had betrayed him. In that small group, one of those feet, two of those feet that Jesus, never said he only had 1 foot. 2 of those feet that Jesus washed were the feet of Judas. Can you imagine? And so what do we get here? I meet a lot of arrogant people. I meet people who think I'm trash, who really don't like me. I meet people who are actually mean to me, as all of us do in life, who say the wrong things. And my reaction is, well, let me show you. Let me tell you a thing or two. Let me one-up you. How about this? How about if we change this game around a little bit? How about if you get a little bit of what you've been given out? See how it tastes, how much you like. That's my natural reaction. But not as a follower of Jesus. As a follower of Jesus, when we meet somebody who is so closed-minded and arrogant and prideful and so just endlessly annoying, what's Jesus' solution? Wash their feet. Wash their feet. Come back under As horribly as they think you are, this is an opportunity for you to absorb that and say, oh, I'm a whole lot less than you think I am by what I'm going to do. I'm getting down on my hands and knees. I'm going to get below you, and I'm going to serve you. I'm not going to oppose you. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to give you some of your own medicine. Nope, I'm going to serve you. That is so hard. That is so hard. And there's Jesus giving the best words to the last moment of his disciples, his last moments on earth. He knew what he was talking about. Because you know what? That's what all of us want to know Christians as. People who serve others, who are not defensive, but understand that our lives are controlled by God. Our lives are in God's hands. None of us, not a single one of us, can have on our resume or on our vitae, don't do feet. No, that's not us. That's not what we do. No, because that's precisely what we do. We do feet. Because that's what Jesus did. Jesus did feet. He got down on his hands and knees. He cared. He reached out. So that's what we want to do as followers of Christ. And let me tell you what, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. As much as little experience I might have in this, I want to tell you, every time that I respond to arrogance or pride or superiority with service, every time with a servant's heart like Jesus, it always lands me in a better place. It always does. I'm always grateful. I never regret it. It's a way to live life without any regrets. A little bit of time go by, you're like, wow, I'm so glad that's what I did. So many good things come from when you follow the words of Jesus literally and serve other people. When you serve others, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a child, whether it be a parent, be a co-worker, a supervisor, whatever it might be. But if you can come in and serve them, because that's what we do. We wash feet. We do feet. If we can do that, inevitably, there's a blessing that comes from following Jesus. There's a blessing. The Bible says, just as we read there, you'll be blessed if you do this. You're greatly blessed when you do this. I do have a question, though. How did Jesus become so humble to be able to do this? How is it that he was able to do that? And I'll tell you, the Bible is very clear about how it speaks all the way through the Christian Bible, the New Testament, how he was able to be so humble. He knew who held his destiny in his hands. He knew that his destiny was not determined by the company he kept. It was not determined by whoever had political office. It was not determined by his skill set. That's not where his destiny depended on. His destiny depended on the Father holding him in his hands and saying, I am taking you where I want you to go. I'm taking you where I want you to be. You can trust me. And when you trust God with your destiny, when you trust God entirely with your life, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your spouse might think of you. It doesn't matter what a parent or what a child might think of you. It doesn't matter what coworkers or future employment opportunity. It doesn't matter, because your destiny is not in their hands. Your destiny is in the hands of God. Your destiny is in the hands of God, and Jesus leads us moment by moment by moment in that. And he will be sure to lead you. He is faithful to guide you. And you too will look back and you'll say, I have landed in a better place by following Jesus. This is not the way to get ahead. I've heard that a million times. I've been told that a million times, but by golly, I got ahead. Look what Jesus did for me. Look how faithful he's been. Look how good. That's the way it is for followers of Jesus. Maybe today you're in a situation, and maybe it's in the marriage, or maybe it's in your family, or maybe it's a health concern, whatever it is. What have you given your destiny to? Who is it that you have to impress? Or who is it that you have to overcome? Who is it or what is it that you have to be superior to? Or on the other side is, what are you afraid of also? That kind of answers the same exact question. What is it out there? This today is a moment for us to redirect our lives and to say, it's not in anything but Jesus. It's not in anything but Jesus. And all the place it is, I'm going to move my dependency. I'm going to move my expectation. I'm going to move my hope for salvation away from all those and put it securely and eternally in Jesus. That's where my salvation is going to be. That's where my hope is going to be. That's where my destiny, that's what's going to hold my future in his hands. And nothing will ever take that away. Jesus is still as supreme and as great and as magnificent for all of eternity, the Alpha and Omega, creator of heavens and earth. He's still everything. Did foot washing take it away? No. Foot washing didn't take it away. Foot washing shone a bright light on it. Foot washing made it even more true and more magnificent and more wonderful. The same for us as followers of Jesus today. As we serve people, as we serve those who are most arrogant, those who nobody would ever say, yeah, you shouldn't be good to. As you do that, you're shining a wonderful light on Jesus. You're shining a magnificent light of testimony on Jesus. And things will go your way. Things will get much better in your situation. And God will be pleased. And He promises to bless you for that. Let's live our lives like that as Christians. We're going to sing now a song, another absolute wonderful song, a beautiful name, the beautiful name of Jesus. And I'd ask you that as we go into this, that you would make that shift from the things you're depending on to depending on Jesus. And let that song be your prayer, and you're accepting Jesus be the center control of your life. And say, it's not about anything else, it's about you. My life is about you, and my goal of my life is to please you regardless. The goal of my life is to please you. I put my life in your hands. As we sing this, let this song be your prayer, and let it be your commitment and your testimony to Jesus.